There is talk today that Rory could be the next great one.
Something amazing happened yesterday. 22-year-old golfer Rory Mcilroy became the youngest U.S. Open champ in almost 90 years.
To finally be able to call myself a major champion is a dream come true.
Comparisons between him and all the greats of golf have followed Rory around forever, but they have also set lofty expectations on his shoulders that have overshadowed much of his career. However, at the start of his career, you couldn't see that at all just yet. Rory Mcilroy came onto the golf scene like almost no other in golf history. The Northern Irishman made his debut in a major at just 18 years old in the 2007 Open Championship, a year younger than Tiger Woods was when he made his debut at the 1995 Masters. From there, he didn't immediately jump to the PGA Tour, spending 2 years or so primarily competing on the European Tour and strengthening his golf and probably his confidence. Indirectly, this also helped strengthen his reputation as well. Over time, the character of Rory Mcilroy grew to unbelievable heights, and he was praised as kind of Europe's golden boy. All of this hullabaloo even caught the attention of Tiger Woods himself when he invited Roars to his 2007 Target World Challenge, an invitation that McIlroy would actually turn down to compete in the European Open, showing signs of a loyalty trait that we've come to know a lot about today. After not competing in a single PGA Tour event in 2008, Rory's 6 top 10 placements in Europe pushed the 19-year-old to 79th in the world already. With that ranking came a lot more eyes on him and his beautiful swing. Rory at the time was a very long hitter who absolutely came on tour and played like a long hitter. Instead of opting for irons off par 4s to land where the rest of the pack were to protect them from wherever their long drives could land, Rory chose to play with his length to use that advantage and grab his driver and put himself in the best position to score. That is part of what brought him so much success in Europe, brought him to the 79th ranking in the world, and it didn't take long for that to take shape in America as well. In 2009, Rory competed in 11 more events on the PGA Tour, making 10 cuts and finishing in the top 25 7 times, with no others being any more memorable than his 3rd place finish in the PGA Championship that year behind Tiger Woods and Y.E. Yang. Rory was making a very strong impression for himself and leveling up the golf world for excitement for the actual game, which was unique for that year considering everything that would come out around Thanksgiving about Woods' affair and all of the nonsense that went around that. Well, a lot of people were focusing on McIlroy as well. It may have been a tumultuous time for Tiger, but for Rory, man, it was his time to shine. His game was electric, and his incredibly kind and likable personality won over so many fans who, being from America, hadn't heard a ton about this young Irishman before. Then in May of 2010, Rory would finally grab his first tour victory with a win at Quail Hollow that saw him drop a 62 to vault past Phil Mickelson and win by 4 strokes. Keep in mind, that's also the same Phil Mickelson that had won the Masters a month earlier. And for the rest of that year, Rory had some really good results. Tied for 3rd in the Open Championship, tied for 3rd in the PGA, tied for 10th at Memorial. There were times where this kid looked incredibly unbeatable, but at times is the operative point of that statement because he was very streaky. On top of all that success, McIlroy was also cut from the US Open, the Masters, the Players, and another tournament as well. However, I think we all know what was going on. His putting was just not there often enough. The rest of his game now could be great, but the short game was all over the place at times. If we look at his strokes gained breakdown for that year, basically the best representation we can find right now for how good he is compared to the rest of the field, well, it tells an interesting story. 21-year-old McIlroy was 6th in strokes gained off the tee, but his ranking quickly got worse the closer you got to the green. He ranked 55th in strokes gained approach to the green. That'll be his irons and his wedge shots mostly, but 109th on tour in strokes gained around the green and 145th in strokes gained putting. He was close to being great, but his entire game was not good enough consistently enough, and that's perfectly explains the wild difference in these results. On some weeks, he had the ability to rock the tour's world with his game, shutting down even the best at the time, like at Quail Hollow with Phil Mickelson, but other times, he didn't even look like he belonged with the rest of the pros, at least when he stepped off the tee box. And to put that into perspective, the guy was 20, 21, so of course he didn't look like everyone else on tour all the time, but because he was always compared with Tiger Woods moving to that point, well, it kind of created this contrast of the two, of what Rory was doing and what Tiger had done, that will come much more into play later on. However, in 2011, we would see the very best of what Rory McIlroy was capable of that year. While most American golfers his age were graduating college and preparing for their first run at the tour, well, Rory was playing unbelievable golf. At the 2011 Masters, Rory McIlroy was so very close to being perfect. On Thursday, he shot a 65 to tie him for the lead, then took the lead Friday with a very clean 69 that put him 2 strokes ahead of everybody else going into the weekend, and Saturday was exactly the same story. A nice and easy 70 bolstered his lead to 4 strokes, and going into Sunday, well, that's a lead that's hard to lose, especially when you're playing insanely good golf like Rory was that week. Now, it's not unprecedented, especially at Augusta National, but hey, after only 3 bogeys in total for that trip to Augusta, well, it's hard to see where he would even drop strokes at all, but on Sunday, something happened to that baby-faced European that would change his career forever. After walking into that day predictably nervous, Rory did what he was best known for and boomed a drive down the first hole where he would surprisingly miss a putt from 5 feet. Maybe a sign of what was to come for his 4th bogey of the week. However, he did steady the ship a little bit and worked with his score, managing a 1-shot lead going into the back where everything fell apart in an insane way. He triple bogeyed 10, bogeyed 11, and double bogeyed 12. Just like that, Rory had gone from 4 strokes ahead to 5 strokes back in just 12 holes of golf. Rory capitulated in the face of his 54-hole major lead, something that could either be taken as a learning experience for some or a scarring one for others. And 2 months later, Rory would show us which of it would be for him. At that year's US Open, Rory would put on a showing that the golf world had seen just a few times before. On Thursday, he walked out at Congressional Country Club in Maryland, and Rory boomed a 6-under 65 in the face of his competitors, showing everyone he was back and ready to play. He had been really good in the past 3 majors, but hadn't been able to put it together completely. But now, the 22-year-old would absolutely change that this week. A second round 66 was the headline of Friday. He was perfect, but the wild part was that he actually double bogeyed 18. Even with that scar on the score sheet, he sat 6 strokes ahead of PGA champion and so-called Tiger killer Y.E. Yang, but the South Korean wouldn't be able to chase him down that week. Saturday, another day of elite scoring weather helped Rory drop a 68 to bolster his lead to 8 strokes at 14 under. Such a low score, in fact, that if he just parred out on Sunday, he would beat the lowest score in a US Open in history by 2 strokes. But hey, that would be way too easy for him. With a score of 69 on Sunday, Rory won the $1.4 million purse by 8 strokes ahead of a surging Jason Day on Sunday and cemented his name as a major winner and as someone who could prove everyone wrong that he was great and he was here, who could turn around in the face of adversity and could find his game when it mattered the most. Rory was solid for the rest of the year, and going into 2012, Rory still won a lot, including a PGA championship.
Tiger Woods was the youngest player ever to win 2 majors, but that honor now belongs to Rory McIlroy, who beat Tiger by 4 months in that age bracket. It was a dominating performance on Sunday, one that will be talked about for many years to come.
However, that very random golf was still very much so apparent. He won 4 tour events that year, but was also cut 3 times, including at the US Open. Something was still awry, and it frustrated Rory to great lengths. Comparing his strokes gained stats for 2012 and 2010, we see a stark contrast in his short game, but his putting stats were still not very impressive, ranking just 88th on tour. Then, in January 2013, McIlroy signed a 10-year, $250 million deal with Nike, making him one of the highest-paid athletes in the world and putting a lot of pressure on his shoulders that he wasn't necessarily ready for. He was still an elite golfer, absolutely one of the best in the world, but still inconsistent, and at 22, well, that all can't be very easy to handle, even for a now two-time major champion. The rest of that year was not very good for him, as he did not win a single event and was yet again cut from a major, missing out on the weekend at the Open Championship. He showed all his frustration very publicly with some of his reactions, but Rory would again prove his ability to recover, to go back to being elite, just as he had a few years before at the Open, going into 2014. Finally, the Northern Irishman found some consistency, not missing a single cut that year, and for the first time placing within top 50 on the tour in strokes gained putting. Oh yeah, and he won 3 tournaments in the span of 1 month, 2 of which were majors. That year, Rory Mcilroy won the Open Championship and the PGA Championship that would start a streak of 54 weeks atop the world golf ranking. Rory had finally put it together when it really mattered the most and was setting himself up for a ridiculous career with 4 majors by the age of 25, only something Tiger Woods had done before him. Rory was ready for greatness. And honestly, if his career ended there, it still would have placed him up there with all of those guys we always hear so much about today. The following year, though, in terms of pure golf quality, was a very similar story. He played a few weeks of incredible golf, won again at Quail Hollow where he shot the course record 61 and won that week by 7 strokes, and was deservedly up there as one of the best golfers in the game. However, his best finish in a major in 2014 was a 4th place spot at the Masters that he earned with the help of 2 very low weekend scores, but they weren't good enough to take home the trophy. Now, grouping all of these years together is kind of crazy considering Rory McIlroy won a hell of a lot of PGA Tour events in the meantime, but I'm doing so because he has yet to win a single major again, and I think a lot of it has to do with his style of play. I don't think it's a lack of confidence or by any means a lack of an ability, just that he has the same style, plays in a similar way to the same kid that broke the golf world in 2014. He hits bombs, is consistently one of the top touring pros off the tee, but is incredibly inconsistent with the flat stick and around the green. Even when we see him bounce back and say he's feeling better than ever with it, at some points in the few weeks following, he almost always loses it again. It's actually very similar to how Scottie Scheffler played until this year. Up until 2024, Scottie was still one of the best golfers in the world, getting to the green, constantly leading in all the same stats Rory did and even being better around the green, but he could just never seem to get a putt to fall. That would change once in a while, and we'd see him win a tournament with relative ease, but it was far from consistent. However, this year he's found that form, won some insane tournaments pretty simply, and is by far and away the best golfer in the world because he is great everywhere those putts are falling. It's in finding that consistency that we see something Rory hasn't been able to do, and since 2014, do it all when it's mattered the most. All those comparisons to Tiger were exciting because he was great immediately sometimes, because he looked like Tiger sometimes, but not consistently enough, like we're seeing from Scottie Scheffler right now. But that doesn't mean he isn't good or hasn't been good. In fact, he has the most PGA Tour wins of any active player who isn't named Phil or Tiger, and has been up there in the top 5-10 golfers in the world pretty much his entire career, but just hasn't found that form again in all majors. He's been really close a lot, and I'm sure it's just as painful for him as it is for me and probably for you as well. It's just a fact that a lot of people stick behind him, and it's very easy to. For all the die-hard PGA Tour guys, well, Rory's been so far a beacon of loyalty for the tour, just as he was years ago when he turned down Tiger's offer to play for the European Tour instead. However, there is a lot that Rory has been capable of doing that most guys today just can't. But the biggest of those things is his longevity. We've seen guys like Justin Thomas, Jordan Spieth, and Jason Day all come out really hot, win great events, but then falter to the shadows a little bit, at least relative to what Rory has been able to do. McIlroy is consistently great, but not consistently great enough. We almost always see his name up there, but it's a matter of that flat stick to this day. He's gonna hit his driver farther than everyone but 2 or 3 other guys every week, which is wildly impressive considering considering how many people have been focusing on speed in recent years. To maintain that skill and that rank in doing that while still playing top-tier golf so consistently, that deserves an award in and of itself. But majors haven't been awarded to him since, because his putter isn't there enough in those events. His short game on top of that isn't great right now either. Despite winning twice on tour already in 2024 and being ranked 3rd in the world and 2nd in the world for some of it, Rory is 74th on tour in strokes gained around the green, while he's actually a little bit better with the flat stick, ranking 40th in strokes gained putting. That's all to say, I don't think anything has really happened to Rory. He's still a great player who can, on his day, be better than pretty much everyone else, and we see that sometimes, but inconsistencies with that elite level have kept him out of the conversation of best golfers of all time. I think Rory's peak as an athlete in tournaments when everything is working for him is better than pretty much every other golfer we've ever seen. He can be incredible, but it's just finding that form again, but he's just got to find that form at the right time. A lot of other golfers put everything together only in those majors, and now with Live Golf, a lot of golfers are only competing against Rory in those tournaments, so it's going to be harder for him, but he still has that quality, he still has that ability, and come on, Roars, we're rooting for you. But even if you don't win another, well, man, you've been wonderful to watch over the years. Thank you for watching this story. If you enjoyed, check out this one about the greatest year in PGA Tour history, or this one about whatever YouTube thinks you'll be interested in. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.